Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Pranam Sa Bhaktivedanta Sutra Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Swami Prabhupada ki Prem se Gaur Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki Itai Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Today we are reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 30, description of adverse fruitive activities, text number 11 to 13, as 11 and 12 don't have a purport, so we'll go to 13. So text 11. Vartayam lupamanayam arabdhyayam punapuna lobha bhibhuto nisatva pararthe kurute spriham vartayam lupyamanayam arabdhyam punapuna lobha bhibhuto nisatva pararthe kurute spriham vartayam lupyamanayam arabdhyayam punapuna lobha bhibhuto nisatva pararthe kurute spriham Pararte kurute spriham. Thank you. Mataji. Vartayam lupyamanayam arabdhyayam punapuna lobha bhibhuto nisatva parate kurute spriham. Vartayam, when is occupation? Lupyamanayam is hampered. Arabdhyayam, undertaken. Puna puna, again and again. Lobha, by greed. Abhibhutaha, overwhelmed. Nisatvataha, ruined. Para arthe, for the wealth of others. Kudute spriham, he longs. Translation. When he suffers reverses in his occupation, he tries again and again to improve himself. But when he is baffled in all attempts and is ruined, he accepts money from others because of excessive greed. Text number 12. Kutumba bharana kalpo manda bhagyo vritho dhyamaha. Shriya vihina kripano dhyayan chvasti muradhi. Thus the unfortunate man, unsuccessful in maintaining his family members, is bereft of all beauty. He always thinks of his failure, grieving very deeply. Evam, text 13. Evam svabharana kalpam tat kalatra dayastatha nadriyante yatha purvam kinasha yavakojaram. Translation. Seeing him unable to support them, his wife and others do not treat him with the same respect as before, even as miserly farmers do not accord the same treatment to the old and worn-out oxen. Purport. Not only in the present age, but from time immemorial, no one has liked an old man who is unable to earn in the family. Even in the modern age, in some communities or states, the old men are given poison so that they will die as soon as possible. In some cannibalistic communities, the old grandfather is sportingly killed and a feast is held in which his body is eaten. Hare Krishna. The example is given that a farmer does not like an old bull who has ceased to work. Similarly, when an attached person in family life becomes old and is unable to earn, he is no longer liked by his wife, sons, daughters, and other kinsmen, and he is consequently neglected, what to speak of not being given respect. It is judicious, therefore, to give up family attachment before one attains old age and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should employ himself in the Lord's service so that the Supreme Lord can take charge of him and he will not be neglected by his so-called kinsmen. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunantam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is a pretty heavy chapter. So here in the purport it's mentioned that in some communities or states, when the old family members, they become a burden, they are sportingly killed and then they are served as a feast. That's a very extreme example. But yes, that does happen sometimes. So if we take this chapter in isolation, yes, it is very heavy. But if we take this chapter in the context of the previous chapters, then in this chapter, which is titled Description of Adverse Fruitive Activities, it's explaining the consequences of not being Krishna conscious. So in the previous chapters, Lord Kapila, he was emphasizing pure devotional service and the benefits of becoming a devotee of pure devotional service. And here, this chapter is more or less an anatomy of materialistic life and the consequences of forgetfulness of Krishna. So in the Rupa Goswami, he explains, wherever there's an injunction, usually there's a prohibition. So Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion, he says, always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So all the rules and regulations of devotional service are more or less contained within this statement. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. So the previous chapters were emphasizing remembrance of the Lord, and here the consequences of forgetfulness of the Lord are described. So materialistic life is more or less due to forgetfulness of Krishna, and that's the very reason we are in the material world, due to forgetfulness of Krishna. And when one forgets Krishna, we become very absorbed. Absorption is samadhi. Samadhi means absorption. So we become very absorbed in materialistic life. We become very absorbed in material life, and that is primarily due to identification with the body. So because of identification with the body, we become attached to all the byproducts of the body. So the children, land, house, facility, position, family, and relatives, and on. The avidya. Thank you, Prabhu. And we become attached to avidya. And when we become attached, we totally become forgetful. And this chapter is explaining how a person who has forgotten Krishna, how their life just goes in a flash. And their vision becomes so narrow, their focus is so narrow. Focus is obviously narrow, but because they're absorbed in material life, their vision becomes very, very narrow, and they cannot see anything else. And life goes in a flash. And this chapter is explaining, the next few verses will explain how then the time of death comes very quickly, and then one is just again attached to family members. So here in this purport, it's in this verse number 13 in the purport, that it's explained that when a man is unable to earn, I'm talking about in materialistic life, that they're not seen as valuable. In fact, they are disliked. So in the Shastra, it explains that five types of people need to be offered protection. Not only Shastra, but even in life we see. One is the Brahmanas, they need to be offered protection. Then the cows, women, children, and old people. They need to be offered special protection. So we can see with the Brahmanas, the Brahmanas are very important because they disseminate spiritual knowledge for the benefit of society at large. That's the job of a Brahmana. Yajan, Yajan, Patan, Patan, Dan, Pratigraha. So, learning Shastra, studying Shastra, teaching it to others, teaching it to society. So spiritual education. Not only material education, but even spiritual education. And they perform sacrifices and teach sacrifices for the benefit of others. They receive in charity, and they also give in charity. So they give in charity, like in ISKCON, we give prasadam. So this is also giving prasadam, receiving in charity donations, then giving it out in the form of prasadam and spiritual knowledge and teachings, deity worship, etc., etc. And then the cows, we know the cows obviously need to be protected because cows are very important. Not only are cows very dear to Krishna, Krishna's name is Gopal, so cows are dear to Krishna, but also cows give milk. So with milk, we make ghee, and ghee is used in sacrifices, in yajna. So again, without ghee, you cannot have yajna. So without dairy, basically, you cannot have yajna. So even in deity worship, in the morning, the Lord is bathed with milk, yogurt, ghee, right? So, and all abhisheks, again, it's dairy products are used. And the yajnas we do, again, dairy products. So cow is very important. And all aspects of the cow and the bull are very, very beneficial. From the cow, from the urine and the cow dung, even till the point when the cow or the bull, they leave the body. So the skin is again very valuable. And the bull and the cow are considered to be the father and mother of society. They help in agriculture and economic development. So economic development, Prabhupada always said, is very simple. You need a piece of land. It's amazing, even in a small piece of land, in a patch of land. Sometimes you can see these urban gardens. If you go to a flower show or garden show, or in people's backyards, amazing, in just a small patch of land, you can grow a lot of food, you can grow a lot of vegetables. So economic development is simple. I was watching one video on YouTube. There's this couple South American couple in America. Can't remember the name of the city, but their backyard was south-facing. So if you know south-facing backyards, you don't get a lot of light. And the front yard was north-facing, so which is ideal for growing crops because the sun is hitting directly. So if you want to grow crops, there has to be sunlight. So anyway, they decided to grow the crops at the front, and in the front yard. And they did that, and they were able to get enough produce for the whole year. They cut their grocery bills by like 80%. All the veggies, they were just growing in this small, maybe 100 square meters. They were growing all the vegetables there, 50 to 100 square meters. Amazing. They had everything. And they had so much council. The council said, you cannot grow food at the front. This is not the council laws do not permit. In front you need to have a garden which is nicely landscaped. And they were saying it's a landscaped veggie patch. So anyway, they fought it out, and they started an online petition, and people from all over the world, they signed the petition, and the council had to agree. So they were not bothered by the so many untidy gardens, front yards, but they were bothered with this landscaped veggie patch. But it went ahead because of support of people. So for economic development, you just need a patch of land and cows. That takes care of economic development. That's why cows are very important. So brahmanas, cows, then women, by nature, the body is not as strong as a man. I'm just talking in general. Of course, there are always exceptions. That's why they're called the fair sex. And then children, obviously, children need protection, right? And old people also need protection because the body gets weak. As the body gets weak, as old age, the body naturally gets weak. So then need more care and attention and protection. So in any civilized society, these things are there. And especially in a spiritual society, even more so, the elderly need to be taken care, because the elderly people, they have a lot of life experience. So that life experience is very, very valuable. Because we young people, we lack a lot of experience, and we learn the hard way. But in a society where old people are taken care of and their knowledge is tapped into, it's a very good combination. I remember my spiritual master, many times in Bhagavatam classes, is mentioned a very good Krishna conscious society is one in which there are elderly devotees, but also the young devotees. And the young devotees are generally very enthusiastic because very young, a lot of energy. And the elderly devotees have a lot of wisdom and spiritual knowledge, applied spiritual knowledge. So the combination is very good. They can feed off each other, and it's very vibrant. The community becomes very vibrant. So therefore, elderly people they play a very important part in society, especially in a spiritual society, because they have this knowledge. They have been practicing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So they have a lot of vigyan, if applied properly. They have a lot of vigyan, and that's very valuable. Even Arjuna, he was a bit concerned before the start of the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna was concerned. He said, if everyone is killed in this battle, then what will happen to... he basically said the social fabric of society will be destroyed. And old people, they lose this wisdom, and it won't be passed down in generations. So this was his concern as well. But today we see that there's a lot of neglect. Of course, we might not have heard of such extreme examples which are mentioned in the purport here, that that in some societies, the old people, they are killed, sportingly killed and offered as a feast, which everyone joyfully partakes in. We might not have heard of something this extreme, but we see a lot of old age homes, right? So in society, modern society, we see a lot of old age homes. What happens is, as people get old, their children, because they're so absorbed in sense gratification, they don't want to take care of their parents because they see them as a burden. So they're put in these old age homes, and in the West, the old age homes have very good facilities. If you go there, facilities are very good, but the problem is they are very lonely, and loneliness is very painful. Loneliness is extreme suffering, because we are by nature social creatures. We are social beings. So we do need to live in a community. And when people are put in old age homes, they suffer a lot. Their children, they come once in a while to see them, but it's extreme suffering. We have seen some videos also. His Holiness Devamita Swami, I remember in some of the retreats at New Nanda, he showed some clips on old age and in old age homes, and the experience is miserable. It's very, very miserable experience. So that is happening today. Because they are seen as a burden, and of course in modern society, the elderly don't have much spiritual knowledge, so they're not seen to have much spiritual value, right? So they quite often come in the way of others, their sense gratification of the younger people, and they have their own agendas. So it becomes very complicated, and they're put there. But it should not be like that. One should have gratitude for one's parents, because when we were young, our parents, they went through so much hard labor to take care of us. They tolerated us in so many ways and paid for our education, and we are where we are because of our family, our parents, and that support. They should not be put in such facilities, and as much as possible, they should be taken care of. And we see, even going back 30-40 years, that's why there were joint families, and today it's becoming more and more nuclear. So joint families, they would take care of the children, would take care of the parents. That was just a given. So therefore these things are very important. And when, as I was mentioning before, when the elderly are taken care of, it's a very good combination. Yes, it does take a lot of effort, but this is the purification for a grihastha. The children and taking care of elderly, these things do purify. It leads to some sacrifice. And in ISKCON's context, this applies as well. Devotees also to be taken care of when they're not doing service, especially the elderly. So it's not just, we join the ashram, and then when we leave, thank you very much, it was nice to have you. We hope you'll be able to do well outside. So even in ISKCON, of course, as the society is growing and it's improving slowly, but in the past also a lot of mistakes were made like this. The devotees were not taken care of. They did years and years of service, and when they left, they were pretty much on their own. So they had a very bad experience and became very bitter. So as part of devotee care, that's what devotee care is about, that as an institution also needs to look after its members. And it's happening also. It's not that it's not happening. But there's always a room for improvement in any society, in any organization. The church, they have a good model. We can, like the church, when the priests, they retire, there's usually, they're taken care of. They have facility allocated for them, the funds allocated for them. So when they retire, they are given some facility so they can live in their old age comfortably. But the main point here, as mentioned in text 13, so Srila Prabhupada, he mentions, it is judicious or sensible, therefore, to give up family attachment before one attains old age and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the main point is, as we get throughout our life, we have to become dependent on Krishna. That's the main point. And particularly in our old age, we need to become even more dependent on Krishna. Need to be more mindful need to be more Krishna conscious, in other words. So when we are Krishna conscious, we will naturally be dependent on Krishna. So we should not just be dependent on family members and external circumstances, but the main point Srila Prabhupada is mentioning is internally we have to be Krishna conscious and be dependent on the Lord for His protection, that the Lord will protect me. That's the main point. We see Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra, it is mentioned as renunciation, 3 types of renunciation. One is out of frustration, one is out of detachment, and one is on a Paramahamsa stage. The detachment, renunciation. So, Dhritarashtra, of course, he was not on the Paramahamsa stage. He was more or less out of maybe frustration and detachment. So, as we age, we have to be more and more dependent on the Lord. So it is even traditionally life was divided in different stages. So the first 25 years traditionally was you would be a brahmachari, then a grihastha, you would then become a vanaprastha, and then a sannyasi. So the whole idea was to gradually become detached. That was the whole idea. Become detached from matter and become attached to Krishna. So of course today it's not possible. It's not practical in Kali Yuga. Everyone takes sannyas. And even some places, Srila Prabhupada said, if husband and wife, they're very Krishna conscious, they're doing wonderfully in Krishna consciousness, they don't need to cut that tie. They don't need to take sannyas in every case. So if one is doing very well and spiritually and they're very supporting each other and very vibrant couple, then they can continue like that and set a good example. But internally one needs to be dependent on Krishna. That's the main point Srila Prabhupada is driving here. That in old age one should take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should employ himself in the Lord's service so that the Supreme Lord can take charge of him and he will not be neglected by his so-called kinsmen. So even if that does happen, one does not take it too seriously. One is still dependent on Krishna. That mood of internal dependence is on the Lord. So yeah, we'll leave it here. You have any questions or comments on this section? Yes, Prabhuji.
What does it mean to be dependent on Krishna?
What does it mean to be dependent on Krishna? Good question. So what are in the Bhagavad Gita, the 6 items of surrender are there, right? Who remembers those 6 items? You have in the 18th chapter, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Srila Prabhupada, he elaborates those 6 items. What's that? Pratikulasya. So what's the translation of that? Number 1?
Number 1 is accept things which are favorable for Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, accepting things which are favorable for Krishna consciousness. Number 2?
Give
Give up things which are unfavorable. 3?
There is Krishna is a protector.
Krishna is the protector, the maintainer. What were the other 2?
Humility.
Humility and? Okay. Full surrender, Atma Nivedanam. Thank you. So yeah, to depend on Krishna, it pretty much means these 6 items of surrender. And then one will be, we can take shelter of the Lord when we are in that state of consciousness. So yes, it comes gradually. It's not an overnight thing. It needs perseverance and practice. Like anything, we need to practice. But we do need to think that we need to be in this mood that yes, Krishna will protect me, and to come in that mood, we have to be always thinking of Krishna. And for thinking of Krishna, we need to always read about Krishna and hear about Krishna. So when we hear and read, then naturally we will become more and more, it will become internalized. And when we are in that state of rendering devotional service, then naturally one begins to take shelter of the Lord and becomes more and more dependent. At least that's what should happen if the application is good in one's bhakti. That dependence will come gradually. Also, the way we become dependent especially for grihasthas, is by giving in charity. So when we give in charity, we become a bit detached from the fruits of our activities, because this chapter is adverse description of adverse fruitive activities. By nature, we are very fruitive. Everything we do, we always think, what's in it for me? Maybe even if we analyze, sometimes even certain services we are doing, there's always some motivation behind. Whether it's giving class or doing whatever service, or maybe going on the altar on a festival day, we might get a bit recognized. There's always some motivation. But as we progress in our devotional service, it should go away slowly, that motivation. So at least having that mood to be more and more selfless by hearing and chanting and being in the association of devotees, then we can become more dependent. And as I was saying, maybe in your context, because you're pretty much 24/7 engaged in the Lord, so this is your charity. So by this cultivating this mood, by continuing that, you'll become more and more dependent on the Lord. But for grihasthas, it's by giving in charity, we become detached for spiritual causes. And then internally also hearing and chanting, and that leads to the dependence on Krishna. That's my 2 cents worth. Anyone else? Yes, Prabhu.
Why does Krishna say he is the gambling of cheats?
Why does Krishna?
Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the gambling of cheats.
Yes.
Why does he say that?
Okay. Question is, Krishna in the 10th chapter, he says, what's that? I'm gambling of cheats? Yeah? What's the exact translation? Something along the lines, what he mentioned here. Of cheating, I'm gambling? Along those lines, he says. Yes, so why does Krishna say that? Because whatever Krishna does, he's perfect. And whatever Krishna does, that's perfect. So, in the material world, gambling is bad. Right? But in the spiritual world, the gambling is also perfect. Like, for example, in the material world, stealing is a bad thing, and the consequence of stealing is we are punished and we are put in prison. But Krishna, he steals, right? Krishna is the Makhan Chor. he steals butter. And that activity or the pastime of stealing is perfect and it is glorified. So in the same way, gambling in the material world is based on greed, right? And gambling is very harmful. It's beneficial for some people, for the very few people who own the casinos. But for the rest who go there to gamble, they end up losing a lot of money, and it causes so many personal problems. People are addicted to gambling. And gambling, it occurs in so many forms. But in the spiritual realm, gambling is... I'm trying to think of some example of gambling in the spiritual, from the transcendental perspective. Can anyone think of any example of gambling? Yeah.
Example, sometimes the Kshatriyas could do it for transcendental purpose. There's no Kshatriyas, obviously, because Kshatriyas could do it honor.
But what's the transcendental example? Yeah, thank you. That's a good example. So that gambling, yes. You could say even sometimes Srila Prabhupada, he gambled as well. Should I do this or not? Sometimes you can say that's gambling. But that's transcendental. So sometimes we also have to gamble. Should I do this or don't do that in the Lord's service? And that is transcendental gambling. So that is perfect.
The biggest gambling for a devotee is giving life to Krishna.
Yeah, good example, good point. Yep. So, when we are new to Krishna consciousness, we are thinking like that. Am I doing the right thing? I'm doing so much devotional service. I'm giving my life to Krishna. I'm given up so many things. Have I done the right thing? So we are all thinking like that. But that's a good gamble. So whatever Krishna does, to answer your question, to sum it up, whatever Krishna does, it's perfect. Anything that the Lord does in the transcendental world, everything is in its pure state. So gambling is also in its pure state. It's perfect. But when it is tinged by the modes of nature, it becomes contaminated. So therefore, it's perfect. That's why he says. And Krishna can cheat. Krishna also cheats, and his cheating is transcendental, and it is for the benefit of others. Any other points, questions?
Also, is it the point is that Krishna is everything in the sense that it comes from him, even cheating and gambling.
Yes.
He does it.
Correct. So everything emanates from him. So gambling, good point. Gambling also emanates from him. Like
he cheats with the gopis later on.
Yeah, so many pastimes he's cheating the gopis. So everything emanates from Krishna. Lust and anger also emanate from Krishna, and they have their positive side, spiritual. It's positive. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Do you have any specific project or program of ISKCON in regards to look after the elderly?
I'm not aware, but having said that, there could be many projects. I'm not aware. Okay, so yeah. There you go. That's one example.
So based on the paper, or like the last paper you read, like how society can get rid of the elderly. But we know like now they age care, and that is kind of like that even for devotees, some devotees also ended up in their parents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much, but Surup Shakti was saying that's one example. There could be more, but there's a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot of service to be done in that area, and hopefully that will grow more and more. We can learn from other organizations how they do it. Yeah.
How can we give up our fruitive mentality inside Krishna consciousness? Like sometimes we take this fruitive mentality that we have material activities and take our spiritual activities, and it makes them like materially consummated actually. So how can we give that up?
By being more Krishna conscious. So when we're more Krishna conscious, then we'll become more selfless, and then the fruitive mentality will go away. And by also associating with other devotees on a practical level, that's also practical, but there's always advanced devotees, so someone we are inspired by who's very selfless and they're doing very selfless service, we can associate with them, and then their association rubs off on us, then we become inspired to act like them, to be like that. So we should all have a role model in Krishna consciousness, some devotees. We take guidance from them. Like people have their heroes, stars, they're inspired by them. They put their posters and they try to follow them. So in Krishna consciousness we can have some devotees we're inspired by and try to not imitate them, but try to follow them, follow the example. It's a gradual process. But the very fact you're asking shows you're sincere. Okay, any last point?
How can one advance quickly in Krishna consciousness if you want to really make further advancement?
Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna is prescribed by the Acharyas. Okay, thank you very much. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.